Jinja. This is a overall light worker placement game published by WizKids. In times of pandemic, I don't get to play games with my adult friends, and my main partners in crime are my daughters, who are currently 8 and 10, and so I played this game with them. So I only play with 2 players and with 3 players. But with 2 players in particular, because my 8-year-old daughter loves this game and we'll be playing it quite a bit. And so that's fun and that's nice, and that also tells you that this is a game that you can play with quite young players. But I believe that after the pandemic, this is a kind of game that I can also play a game night with my adult friends. It has, again, it's very simple. In essence, it's very streamlined and intuitive, but it has some interesting wrinkles there, and I can totally see my adult friends playing it. In this worker placement game, we're going to send our workers to collect resources and then to use game effects to basically build shrines. That's the main thing that we're going to do. This is the board. It looks nice. It's nice and colorful. It's a little thin. I think it's a little on the cheap side from the point of view of production. I think it may fall apart at some point. It may need some tape in the back, which is kind of surprising. But it's nice and colorful and also very practical. It's very efficient. You can see the different areas. There you have a very effective play array, but also play area, telling you what the different effects are, the spaces where we're going to build our temples, spots where we're going to put the tokens representing resources, and so on and so forth. The box comes with a plastic insert, and you see the components organized in it, and they fit and they work pretty well. Once you fold the board and you place it here, it feels nice and snugly, and you really can keep those components there without fear of those getting all, like, not missing, but all messed up in the board or in the box. Each player will have a set of components such as this one with shrines, a scoring tokens that goes on the scoring track, and then of course we got our workers, or it ain't a worker placement. Other things of notice, these lantern tokens, you place one in each territory at the beginning of the game randomly. They all look the same on their blue side. They all say +1 gold, but they have different rewards on the other side, and we'll see later why that matters. We're gonna have gold, one of the main resources in the game that we're gonna use to, well, buy stuff, unsurprisingly, I guess. And then a bag of structures. You will need those to build your shrines. Some game effects will allow you to choose, which ones you want. Some of the game effects will let you collect random ones. A die that shows blue fox, orange fox. Sounds like a Dr. Seuss book, but no, that's exactly and truly what it is. And then 3 decks of cards. This deck of cards has a Japanese name, but we call them the scoring cards because this is what they do. You collect these ones and then you reveal them at the end of the game, and based on the conditions that you have been able to fulfill at that point, you will score the corresponding number of points. If, for example, I have a shrine in Kanto and one in Kansai, then just those 2 will allow me to score those 2 cards. And so on and so forth. That's for that part. Then we had the deed cards that represent the shrines. So for each territory here, you're gonna have a deed representing a small, a medium, and a large shrine. At the beginning of the game, you're gonna shuffle them. You're gonna give a hand of these cards to each player, and then you're gonna draft them. So from my hand of cards, I select one. I give you my hand, you give me yours, I select one, and so on and so forth. Sushi Go, 7 Wonder style, until each player has a hand of deed cards. And then we have, these are the cards here that also that represent different unique conditions, effects that will happen every turn. During setup, we draw 5 of them randomly, and we place them in a line face down next to the board. Incidentally, these cards will also act as our turn track, because at the beginning of each turn, we flip one face up, we see what the effect is, which sometimes applies immediately. So I will add a random resource, a random structure to each territory. Other times they apply differently. You just see what it is and you will see when that applies. And again, the one that is face up also tells us that turn, and once we're done with the turn, this one goes face down, we offset a little bit, maybe, and now we're in turn 2, and so on and so forth. At the end of turn 5, we score points, and the player with the highest score wins the game. So once we are ready to go, it's time for us to start sending our workers out. When it's your turn, you need to place one of your workers in an empty space, either on this section of the board here, the activity section, or in a territory, in the space of a territory. Usually you can only place a worker if the space is not occupied. If you have a fox token you may receive it at the beginning of the game, for example, then by spending a fox token you're able to place a worker in a place that already contains a worker. If you place a worker in a territory, you can choose to either collect all of the resources that may be there, which can be different things, gold and or structures placed there by game effects, or you can choose to build a shrine there. If you have first a deed of the corresponding territory, here we go, Chugoku for Chugoku, and of course the corresponding resources. So for example, if I have the corresponding structures, which I don't have with me, but I think you get the sense. If I have that one and 3 of those, I discard them, I place my worker there, show they have the deed, show I have the right structures, discard them, and then I get to place a shrine in an empty space of the territory, and this card goes in my play area to indicate first the kind of shrine that I built, because the shrine plastic pieces all look the same, so I need the card to tell me if it's a small, medium, or large. And also there are game effects here, there are bonuses that I will score at the end of the season, which is the end of the round. So that's what happens when you place a worker in a territory, collect stuff or build a shrine. As for those other activities up there in that section of the board, if I place a worker there, it's a very powerful action, the deed exchange, but if you overuse it, you're going to regret it later, trust me. It is you discard one of your deeds, and sometimes that's not a bad idea because maybe your deed is useless. All the areas in the territory have been occupied by shrines. You cannot build a shrine there, or you really don't think you're going to use it. By discarding a deed, you're going to collect the 3 random structures from the bag, and as a consolation prize, the other players also get a structure. Deed buyback. You spend 2 gold and you get to select a deed from the discard pile, basically one of those that have been assigned. There's no deed draw deck. There's only, after setup, there's only discard pile. So go through it. Because of an effect, I need a medium, or I need 1 in Hokkaido, whatever it is, to buy a deed. And if you had the right resources already, if you had the right structures already, you can build it immediately. So great opportunity saving there if you're able to pull that off, to collect the resources first, and then you buy the deed and you immediately build it. The Omikuji fortune cards, which is again what we call the scoring cards. Draw 2 of them, and then you discard 1 from your hand, and that will increase your chances of scoring. Gain territory resources. I place a worker there, then I choose a territory, and I collect the resources, which is exactly, of course, what you could do if you go there and use that opportunity to do so. But maybe I place a worker there to build a shrine, so there are still resources there. Then I use the gain territory resources to pick up resources. Territory built is the same idea. I pay a gold, and I can build a shrine just the same as if I was there. And the only reason to do that by paying a gold instead of doing it without paying the gold is if somebody's already sitting there. Change lantern bonus. Remember those lantern tokens? When you select that action, you're gonna take 2 lanterns and flip them to the other side. And then you're gonna choose the bonus effect of one of those that you flipped. Again, on the blue side, they all show just 1 gold. On the other side, they may show more gold, like 2 gold, for example. They may show victory points and gold, so good stuff. Now, at the end of the turn, players will collect the bonus from the lanterns in the areas where they have shrines. So one of the reasons to flip these tokens is not just that you're going to collect the bonus as you do it, is that if I have a shrine there, now that gives me 2 victory points and a gold. This would only give me a gold. So you're going to use that action to flip lanterns to their better side, where you're going to collect resources and points at the end of the game. And also you can dampen the power of the other players by flipping back to the blue side territories where they have shrines and you don't. That's for the lantern bonus. Then we have the minor offering. You spend 2 gold and you roll the die, blue fox, red fox. And depending on what you roll, you score 3 points or 5 points. Just like that. Booyah, you buy points. By spending 4 gold, you buy 6 victory points. Purchase and sell structures. So that's what you do if you select that action. Spend 2 gold to buy a structure of your choice, and or up to 5 times. So again, try to collect money, so opportunity cost, 1 action gets you a lot of structures, and or sell structures for a gold each. Or get random structures, or see what happens. Roll the die, blue fox, red fox. Depending on what you get 2 random structures or one of your choice. Only with these actions are only available for the number of players. For example, there may be extra gold involved. And then roll for gold. Blue fox, red fox for 2 or 3 gold. So this is what happens when you send your workers out there. They will collect deeds or sell deeds. They will collect stuff that they need to build shrines, and they will build shrines. And that's the general idea, super important. At the end of the season, which is after all workers have been assigned, players will receive bonuses from the deeds that they have completed, that is representing the shrines that they have actually built. As you can see, they often have to do with collecting gold or spending gold to buy things. Plus, players will collect the bonuses for the lantern tokens of the territories where they have their shrines. And then at the end of the game, you're gonna score points for the shrines that you built, for the fortune cards that you're able to score. Each 5 resources, that is structures and or gold, as long as it's a set of 5, is worth 2 victory points. And then super important, for each region where you have majority, and yet for this purpose there are only 3 regions in the game: north, center, and south. For each region where you have the most shrines, you score 8 points. That can change things. I've seen people from behind scoring 16 points right there, and that may win you the game. So at the end of the game, you collect points from all possible sources, and at the point, the player with the highest score wins the game. Jinja. Well, I was definitely impressed and pleasantly surprised. When I read the rulebook, I was afraid the game may be a little too basic, a little too linear, a little too by the book within the genre of worker placement. I place a worker, I collect some resource. I place another worker, I spend them. That's it. That has been done so many times. Does this game add a lot to that idea? Not necessarily, but it implements it in a way that is very nice and very smooth and very pleasant, and that is accessible to very young gamers without feeling, without feeling dumbed down. it was definitely a joy to see my daughter Louisa, especially Louisa, the 8-year-old, uh, struggle a little bit at the beginning. Oh my gosh, there's so many actions. How can I ever? This is confusing, Dad. Why should we play such a crazy, complicated game? And yet, just in almost no time, things, you see things clicking together in a little overactive mind, because ultimately the game is very intuitive. It is about, well, I need to do this, I need to collect that stuff, and to do that I need to have that as a resource, and so on and so forth. So it does what you expect from a lightweight worker placement, but somehow it does it in a really, again, nice and very enjoyable way, and one that you can play with young gamers and or with very casual players, as long as, again, you don't mind seeing their confused, bemused faces at the beginning. They'll get it. It really makes sense. And I like the sense of engine building that you have here, because I like the fact that by the third turn I have more things to do and I collect more stuff so I can buy more stuff, etc, etc, etc. I like that sense of progression, that the turns are not just one after the other all the same, but there's more at stake because there are more resources that I collect, more actions that you can perform. Some of those bonuses from the deeds are actions. So there is a nice crescendo, but I also like the fact that it still feels smooth and it does not slow down the game. There are games with an element of engine building that I find pretty tedious when the game should be at the best, because you have this crazy engine in place and your opponent maybe also has one, and you're there, and your opponent gonna use this part of the engine to collect a resource, to trade with that card, to refresh that action, which gives me another action, blah, 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 like, oh. So sometimes engine building games slow down the game. Here you get more stuff, and so actually you feel like the game speeds up. So from the first round or two in which you feel like, will I ever build a shrine when I need 6 resources? I have one. It looks like it takes me a worker to collect 1 resource. But then you start building those shrines, and because of that, the later shrines become easier to build. Again, you have that sense of like things speed up and become more exciting, and then the game is over. So it's a really short game, meaning it's not a filler, but mind you, you can play it in an hour easily. And it has a sense of progression that doesn't give you engines that are too crazy, doesn't have the problem, in my experience, of a runaway leader in which some player created a fantastic engine that fits upon itself, cold fusion or whatever, and then it's somebody is left behind. Even good engines will give you a little bit more, but will not project you too far ahead that the competition feels pointless towards the end. Actually, it's interesting to see that sometimes in the final score you do have some surprises. Somebody from behind is able to score a lot of points, especially when it comes to control of the 3 main regions. So you really don't have any innovative concept that reinvents the wheel, but you have a really nice, clean, colorful, playable package that presents you with a tight experience with a lot of interesting decisions. Actually, even the last turn, sometimes you realize you're not going to build any deed, build any shrine, because variety of reasons, such as I don't have any deeds, and all the ways of getting new deeds have been used. And even when that happened, the last turn didn't feel trivial, because you can still mess up the lanterns, you can still collect some resources that will give you some points, you can still go and sit on a place because you think that will block somebody else. So really nice, I don't know if tree of decisions is the right idea, because you have one main flow, which is collect stuff to build shrines, but then you have some peripheral actions that just make the experience a little more interesting, spice things up. So really nice overall package and really nice game. Very fun, very playable. I definitely enjoyed it playing it with 2 or 3 players. I don't know that I would want to play with really 4 or 5, which is allowed by the rules. Then I'm afraid there may be a little bit of analysis paralysis, and it may get a little bit frustrating if spent a lot of turns building a certain situation so I can build a shrine, collecting those resources, and you go and you block me. I feel that can be frustrating, and I feel that also can feel random because you just don't know what card is there. If you're gonna destroy my engines because it happens to be that way, not because you tried to do it, and what's the fun in that, really? If you're gonna push somebody down a cliff, you should know that you're doing it. Otherwise, it's just an accident. So with 2-3 players, the game moves fast, and also again there aren't so many chances that something that you prepared to build is not going to happen, so you're not going to have that frustration. So overall, Jinja with 2 or 3 players, really, really enjoyable. What I said about higher counts of players is completing my hypothesis, so feel free to disagree because I haven't played it that way, but played it with my daughters, definitely a very enjoyable, light, but very fun game.